Greetings and welcome once again to another series of videos Michael's put together for us, sessions he's put together for us in this topic of science is the new religion. And we are on the 16th of March, 2024. And that time is just flying by. Michael, this topic, Antarctica, it is a very interesting topic because it hardly gets any airtime at all. No airtime. I don't remember hearing anyone talk about Antarctica. Michael, do you?
I'm just thinking about Antarctica for half a year now, so therefore I'm a little bit biased. I don't think so, and it's just on purpose because you see that people are usually busy with Hawaii or Spain or somewhere else where it is just nice and warm and there are palms and oceans and trees and party. So there is not much party in Antarctica.
No, it doesn't look like it.
No, but maybe we should take a closer look because this is just a series and a session full of coincidences. Let's just look at it from another perspective. Antarctica is a continent on the South Pole. We have learned about Proverbs 8, right? Of the Earth. Earth has a magnetic field, so therefore the North Pole and the South Pole covered in ice. A reminiscence maybe of the goddess Isis, the queen of ice, close to Chile, Australia, New Zealand. It was discovered, a website tells me, in 1820 by the Russians in collaboration with the Royal Society of Stewards and House of Hanover. The name Antarctica, word arc, Antarct, was invented by Scottish geographer John George Bartholomew of the Royal Society. The North Pole was always associated with the Atlantis civilization of the Draco-Nordic Aryan race. The dragon Draco encircles the North Star. Interesting, huh? Interesting. I'm not going into the Atlantis civilization because you see, you have to take it with a grain of salt because there is no Atlantic civilization, of course. But nevertheless, we know that Antarctica is just quite the opposite of the Arctic. So if you would like to go into the ISIS, I would have to disappoint you because I don't want to go into all this mythology and all the stuff. I just want to go and to see if just there is something actual going on, or is it just all a coincidence which is just happening in the world. So many people claim, ISIS is just the Egyptian equivalent of your Virgin Mary, although the Bible really speaks of Mary being a virgin, then being impregnated, the Holy Spirit. So there are many similarities in the worship, but the Bible forbids any worship of Mary, does it, Brett?
Oh, yeah, of course. No, Mary was the mother of Jesus, and that's about it.
That's about it, yes. That's about it. Yeah, but in the pagan belief, you see that the Isis could raise the dead. Yeah, she could just fulfill or just recreate the 14 chopped parts of her former husband into a new one. Yeah, so she could raise somebody from the dead. Yeah, great, huh? It's also interesting when you think about it. And Isis is then, she's really a goddess because she can raise somebody from the dead. Yeah, but you see that you don't see a Mary worship in the Christian belief. It is just in the Roman Catholic Church and in many other belief systems, let's say the Islamic people. They also have their kind of a worship of Mary. Queen of Islam, Queen of Heaven, Queen of all. Before I go into ecumenism. Help me out.
Ecumenism.
Ecumenism.
Yes.
Yeah. Ecumenism.
Heavy on the U.
Yeah, I don't want to go into all the stuff. What I would like to compare it with the North, because in the North there is the polar star, the North Star. And there is also the fixed sign of Draco. And where does the name Arctic actually come from? Because Antarctic is just quite the opposite of Arctic. Now, let's face it. King Arthur could be a reference to Arcturus and Arctica, about the mythical Hyperborea. This is a, let's say an island or a continent, continuous landmass on the North Poles. Hyperborea. That was a prophesized or hypothetical country island, what else, in the 4th century before Christ by a scholar named Hecataeus. Antarctica, really interesting, was depicted on the maps of Gerard Mercator, a friend of John Dee. And Arcturus, Arctica, is the brightest star in the northern constellation. And yeah, it's the 4 brightest stars in the night sky and the brightest in the northern celestial hemisphere. So Arcturus, King Arthur, and the Arctic, maybe, is derived from the word Arcturus, the brightest star in the northern constellation. And it's quite fitting then, when you think about the Egyptian mythology, that they saw these deceased kings as then stars on the sky, on the night sky, of course. So much for mythology. Arcturus. In astronomical tradition, associates Arcturus with the mythology around Arcas, who was about to shoot and kill his own mother Callisto, who has been transformed into a bear. And that's why I answered your question, Brett, last week, why they showed some bears around the North Pole in one kind of a drawing then. And that could be the reason here.
Interesting.
And you see, the Greek means Arctos, the bear. An alternative lore associates the name with the legend around Icarius, who gave the gift of wine to other men but was murdered by them because they had no experience with intoxication and mistook the wine for poison. It is stated that Icarius became Arcturus while his dog Maira became Procyon, blah, 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 blah. You see, that is all just a mythological background there, the Arctic, Arcturus. And there you go with your King Arthur, a legendary figure in the mythology of Britain, Great Britain. Arthur represents a solar hero dying and rising of the god Osiris, Orion, or Orion. Yeah, you see that Osiris means Orion on the night sky. Deceased kings as seen as being portrayed as stars in the night sky. With his sword, the emblem of rulership. Arthur means Arcturus the bear, close to the North Star with Draco, the father of Pendragon. The Holy Grail bloodline of Draco-Orient Empire, and you don't have to read any further, because with all the bloodlines you see it is just a totally unbiblical concept. And they even tell you that, like the 12 apostles of Jesus Christ, the Knights of the Round Table represent the 12 signs of the zodiac band. That is, of course, untrue. The 12 apostles of Jesus Christ, if they resemble anything, Brett, and I would suggest they resemble the tribes of Israel.
Yes, correct.
With the sun in the middle, isn't it fitting for a sun religion then? Yeah.
That would make 13 then, right? Kabbalistic.
Yeah. The lance represents the celestial pole with Draco on top, or the ruler.
Oh, now, isn't that interesting? If you see 12 signs in the zodiac with the sun in the middle, represents, guess what? Ta-ta! The Templar, or not Templar, I'm sorry, the Maltese cross.
And here it is just the Knights on the Round Table, which is just another deception.
Yeah. Right.
But it's interesting to see if you would combine it or compare it with the astronomical tables, then it is not the sun which is in the center, but it is the earth. It's a geocentric system then. But of course they will tell you, oh yeah, that is because it comes from Babylon and from the Sumerians and all the stuff, and they did not know that we are living in a sun system. Yeah, sure. Because of their Aryan Atlantean descent, you see that Atlantis was been seen as being in the north. The British and Scottish believed they had the right to conquer North America and build a new Atlantis. Yeah, I know that there are some interesting books about it. The King Arthur tales are linked to Glastonbury Cross, that's a church if I remember correctly, and summer solstice, the birthday of William V. And you can keep busy yourself with all the stuff. We do not want to keep ourselves busy with unnecessary stuff. We just want to go into the nitty-gritty. Camelot, by the way, the Knights of the Round Table, is the castle, I think I can remember, where King Arthur ruled. Huh? The end of Camelot. Camelot was been seen as being the family of Kennedys. Yeah, long ago. And so, therefore, we should focus not on mythological tales, where now we know where Arctic and, of course, therefore also Antarctica comes from. The name is derived from Arcturus. Let's look up what there is also be found quite nearby the Antarctic, and there I just was not focused on South America alone, but on the southern parts of South America. And let's start with the southernmost part of South America, which is then quite nearby the ocean, which just is setting apart South America from the Antarctica, okay? So the most southern part of South America is Cape Horn. This you cannot see on that map here because it would be here. It must be the southernmost part where the ships could see the coast of South America, so to speak. So that this has been named Cape Horn. Did you ever come across Cape Horn, Brett?
No, never.
Okay. So Cape Horn is the southernmost headland of the Tierra del Fuego archipelago of southern Chile and is located on the small Hornos Island. Cape Horn marks the northern boundary of the Drake Passage, which marks where the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans meet. And there you got a little bit enhancement here. This is Cape Horn. Cape Horn was identified by mariners and first rounded in 1616 by the Dutchmen William Schouten and Jacob Lemaire, who named it Cape Horn after the city of Hoorn in the Netherlands. That's very interesting because I know that it has been named Cape Horn with one O, but what do I know? And now the city where William Schouten has been born in is called Hoorn with double O. But maybe this is just another fancy stuff of English-speaking countries that they would like to have it more simple. For decades, Cape Horn was a major milestone in the Clipper route by which sailing ships carried trade around the world. Sure. A few recreational sailors continue to sail this route, sometimes as part of a circumnavigation of the globe. It's very interesting. It always puts a smile on my face when I see that interesting expression of circumnavigation. Circumnavigation means a circle. Huh? But we go to this quite later on. So, these are some islands here, and this is then the official discoverer of Cape Horn, or Horn with double O, the Dutchman William Schouten, or Willem Schouten, more likely in Dutch. He was born in Hoorn in Holland in the Netherlands, and he was the first to sail Cape Horn, with one O, route to the Pacific Ocean. The expedition consisted of two ships, the Eendracht, so Unity, and Horn. The main purpose of the voyage was to search for Terra Australis, so Australia, or just Terra means earth and Australis means southern, so the southern earth. I can remember that we talked about this last time. A further objective was to explore a western route to the Pacific Ocean to evade the trade restrictions of the Dutch East India Company in the Spice Island. In 1616, Mr. Schouten, or Schouten, rounded Cape Horn, which he named after the recently destroyed ship Horn and the Dutch city of Horn, after which the lost ship was named, the town in which Schouten himself was born. And now comes contradiction. Schouten names the strait itself the Lemaire Strait, and then comes some uninteresting informations. And then I thought it would be great to just look to two different versions of Wikipedia, first the German one and then the English one, because sometimes information is missing here and then it's just been added there. And I thought, okay, this is a interesting excerpt of the German Wikipedia. It may be that was, sometimes I'm quite a bit nice to translate it into English. So this is the English explanation or translation. The sea area was first navigated in 1616 by Willem Cornelis Schouten, who originally named the Strait of Le Marais after Jacob Le Maire, the discoverer of Cape Horn. I'm sorry, guys. In the English Wikipedia, I read that Cape Horn has been named after the city of Horn because that was the birth town of Mr. William Schouten. And now I learn in the German Wikipedia that the original named it the Strait of Le Maire after Jacob Le Maire, the discoverer of Cape Horn. So Jacob Le Maire is now the discoverer. So this is just contradiction between the German and English Wikipedia, but it gets way better. It is possible that the area has already been navigated before Drake and Schouten by the Spanish captains Francisco de Hoces in 1526, which is just 90 years before, and Gabriel de Castilla in 1603. Remember that the Spanish Armada was the biggest sea army in the world there? This is why the strait is often referred as to Mar de Hoces, or Hoces Sea in Spanish, Argentinian and Chilean sources. So in Spanish-speaking countries, let's put it this way. So they named it Cape Horn against to the fact that it is the name of the birth city of William Schouten. But on the German Wikipedia, you read that it was the discoverer was Jacob Le Maire. And not only this, it has been the area has been named the Strait of Le Maire, and not only this, it gets worse because it is possible that this area had already been navigated by the Spanish captain Francisco de Hoces, because this strait is often referred as to Mar de Hoces in Spanish-speaking countries. But for a certain unknown reason, at least up to now, they chose Cape Horn as the name and not Cape Le Maire or Cape Hoces. So it is Cape Horn. And you think, that must only be a coincidence then, that you name a certain point not to the original discoverer, but to somebody else who was just more suitable for any kind of reason. In Spanish, however, the Estrecho de la Mer refers to the passage between Tierra del Fuego and Tierra del Sol. And now that everybody who is not in the Spanish-speaking abilities, does not have any Spanish-speaking abilities, is quite lost. Tierra del Fuego means the land of fire, and Tierra del Sol, of course, means the land of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite awkward, because both of it is located in the southernmost part of South America, which is not generally known for being too hot.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So what about this Tierra del Fuego? Yeah, this is the province Tierra del Fuego. So after I came to the strange fact that Cape Horn was not mentioned correctly, or was not named correctly, because there was a certain Spanish sailor before, who most likely Francisco de Hoces and Gabriel de Castilla, which was 13 or 90 years before Mr. Schouten came up with the hilarious idea to name that southernmost part there Cape Horn. We got the next problem. The land of fire is not a hot land or hot country on that regard. The Tierra del Fuego means the land of fire or fireland. Here in German, we actually name it Feuerland, so fireland in English or Feuerland in German, an archipelago of the southernmost tip of the South American mainland across the Strait of Magellan. Interesting, huh? So, it consists of the main islands, which an area of 48,100 square kilometers. That sums up to 13 here, but that is just only my problem. And now comes the interesting one. Tierra del Fuego, and this is Wikipedia in English, and similar naming stem from sightings of the many bonfires that the natives build. I read that sentence again. The land of fire and similar namings stem from sightings of the many bonfires that the natives build.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it's just a coincidence then. And you can look up Wikipedia and you will see thousands of people, Patagonian sheep faming and local gold rush, and they will claim that they have watched the natives then making fire there, because maybe it is so cold. But this is just the reason officially why they name it the Land of Fire, or Tierra del Fuego. The name Tierra del Fuego was given by the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan, hence the Magellan Strait, which is quite nearby, while sailing for the Spanish crown in 1520. So, shall I suppose that when the land has been discovered in 1520, that they did not discover the southernmost part, which is now been known as Cape Horn, but is only named 1616, so quite 100 years later? And that's what I shall believe? I don't believe it. Once again, the name Fireland, Land of Fire, was given by the Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan while sailing for the Spanish crown in 1520. He believed he was seeing the many fires, fuego in Spanish, of the Yakan, which were visible from the sea, and that the so-called Indians were waiting in the forest to ambush his armada. In 1525, Francisco de Hoces was the first to speculate that Tierra del Fuego, or the Land of Fire, was one or more islands rather than a part of what was then called Terra Australis. Francis Drake in 1578 and a Dutch East India Company expedition in 1616, that's where William Schouten discovered Cape Horn, learned more about the geography. The latter expedition named Cape Horn at Hornos Island. Although, you see, the land has been discovered 100 years before by Ferdinand Magellan. But it was a Portuguese explorer, so what do I know? Why didn't they choose the name of Magellan Cape Magellan, or what else? Maybe they did not like Portuguese? Maybe the Pope said, oh yeah, this part of the world belongs to you. Inter Caetera, 1493. I don't know. But it gets worse. On the first voyage with HMS Beagle in 1830, Robert Fitzroy picked up 4 native Fuegians, so inhabitants of the Land of Fire, and brought them to England. The 3 who survived the voyage were taken to London to meet the King and Queen and were for a time celebrities. They returned to Tierra del Fuego, so the Land of Fire, in the Beagle, in that ship with Fitzroy and Charles Darwin, who made extensive notes about his visit to the island. Charles Darwin, we know that his grandfather was coming up with that hilarious idea of this evolution theory and all the alike. And it's not only this mess. He started also that without Charles Darwin, most likely then the National Socialist or the National Zionist, actually, the Nazis in Germany, because Nazi is not National Socialist, would not have their theological backup of the race, because the problem is that nobody reads actually the entire title of that book. It's not the origin of species, and it's not this book that I mean here, but it's about favored races, about that some races are supreme. By means of natural selection or the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. And this is racism. But you see that your school won't teach you this. Your school has to teach you an anti-biblical philosophy. So, now we have seen some very strange occurrences here, and this is just the beginning. The Cordillera Darwin in the southern west part of the main islands contains many glaciers that reach the ocean. Mount Darwin, so that Mr. Darwin of the evolution theory, he has also his own mountain. I don't think that is usually been known anywhere. My. You see, this entire range has been named after Charles Darwin. So, in the Land of Fire, Tierra del Fuego, in the southernmost part of South America, there is a mountain which has been named after Charles Darwin even. And they're coming up with strange names. And they don't name these points and islands after the original discoverer. This is very odd, but it continues to stay this way. There's also McDonald's Island, I don't know. You see, this is Cape Horn here, and this is Fireland. This is South America. And now we come to the next interesting stuff. We have talked about that extremely interesting discoverer. This name is Francis Drake. And therefore, as he has discovered that Drake Passage here, as the passing between South America and the Antarctica, it has been named Drake Passage after Sir Francis Drake. I told you I would like to compare the German and the English Wikipedia. Only in the German Wikipedia I read this sentence. Sie ist nach Francis Drake benannt, da dieser sie auf seiner Weltumsegelung auf der Suche nach 2 im Sturm abgetriebenen Begleitschiffen zufällig entdeckte. And because I have to imagine that nobody has understood anything of what I just said, I have of course translated it into English. The Drake Passage is the name given to the strait between the southern tip of South America, Cape Horn, and the northern tip of the Antarctica Peninsula. It connects the Atlantic Ocean, especially the Scotia Sea, with the Pacific Ocean on the left, and is part of the Southern Ocean. It is named after Francis Drake, who discovered it by chance while sailing around the world in search of 2 companion ships that had drifted away in a storm. That's the only comment which I can come up with. It must be a coincidence then. Because he discovered it by chance. He was just sailing the world and he just said, oh, there is a hole between the Antarctica and South America, and that's where I have to go through, I have to pass. So once again, you got a Cape Horn, which has been discovered by anybody else. You got a Tierra del Fuego, because of native bonfires. And you got, by this chance, you know that this Tierra del Fuego has been discovered by people 100 years before Cape Horn. And now you see that the discovery of the entrance or the ocean between South America and the Antarctica has been made by chance. It is named after Francis Drake, who discovered it by chance. And if you believe so, I don't do it. Because the sea area was first navigated in 1616 by William Cornelis Schouten, who originally named the Strait of Le Maire after Jacob Le Maire, the discoverer of Cape Horn. Interesting, huh? So, let's get back. Welcome to the Drake Passage. Because of Sir Francis Drake. The Drake Passage is the body of water between South America's Cape Horn, Chile, Argentina, and the South Shetland Islands of Antarctica. The passage is named after the 16th century English explorer and privateer Sir Francis Drake. I said, oh, that is great. Everybody who wants to and is the best buddy of any king or any ruler on that regard gets a certain country. In the case of Charles Darwin, a mountain. Oh, now he's got his own strait, the Francis Drake, the Drake Strait. Isn't that great, Mr. Drake? It's a little bit like America, Amerigo Vespucci, right? You don't name the country that officially you discover Columbia, like Christopher Columbus. That would be obvious. First, you explain to the world that Christopher Columbus has discovered the New World. And after that, Amerigo Vespucci does the same. And they say that, Amerigo sounds better than Columbus. Or what? Let's look up what a strange character that Francis Drake is. This is a timeline on Francis Drake circumnavigation. That's why I inserted here the front cover of the Cosmology Conflict, CC 33 of Chris Parkes. You see, you don't need a globe. Just by the way, just a small insert. You don't need a globe to make a circumnavigation because you can sail around the circle. Because circum means circle. So it's a circular navigation. And of course you can encircle a circle. That's why it's been called circumnavigation. Right. Okay, here is a circumnavigation. It comes from circle. Circle means, or circumnavigate actually on that regard, to sail round, pass round by water. So to, let's say, to swim or to sail or to ship in a circle. Comes from circum. means literally in a circle. Not necessarily a sphere, not necessarily a globe, if you insist on a pyramid. You can also encircle a pyramid. It's no problem. You draw a circle around the pyramid and yeah. So, in 1577, Mr. Francis Drake began a circumnavigation which would last for 1,046 days. Great! Can you sum it up, Brett?
11.
Sure. So, he was the first Englishman to navigate out of the South Atlantic Ocean, and during the journey, blah, 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 he first overseas possession claims during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, and it was the longest voyage humans had made to date. During this time, Drake formed the idea to plunder Spanish ships in the Pacific Ocean, and John Dee developed a formal proposal for English circumnavigation. After Dee submitted his proposal to Queen Elizabeth's Privy Council, which means if he has access to a Privy Council, he must be one of the initiates, Mr. John Dee. I said, vitamin B. You see that John Dee was running the English Secret Service together with Francis Walsingham, or at least they worked together, they collaborated. Queen Elizabeth and Drake met at her Greenwich Palace in 1577. I thought to myself, but could it be that that has some effect on the 0-degree longitude in Greenwich, that there was a palace of the English Queen? And an observatory? Could be, huh? The historic prime meridian or Greenwich meridian in England, this prime meridian was first established in 1851, but you see that Greenwich Palace, they met 274 years ago or something like this. But it's just a minor thing. Drake's successful circumnavigation led him to being held with high regard as a sailor and explorer by his contemporaries, and he became famous throughout Europe. The value of the treasure deposited in the Tower of London, £264,000, eclipsed the revenue collected by the English Parliament each year. Drake's feat resulted in his knighthood, attempts to strengthen Spanish defenses, and along with the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588, the big storm, upset the geopolitical balance of power. And this is the diary of the circumnavigation of Sir Francis Drake. He had 5 ships and he sailed at 5 o'clock. Sure, why not? The crew itself believed they were on a journey to Alexandria in Egypt, you see, where they once had that so-called famous library. And they were accompanied. I thought that was quite interesting. Look at this. The expedition is supplied with a chaplain, Francis Fletcher, who records the most 66 FF, who records the most complete surviving account of any who serves on this journey. He was a priest of the Church of England who accompanied Sir Francis Drake on his circumnavigation in this 3-year period. About Mr. Fletcher, there is little certain information about the rest of his life. How could that be? He was briefly rector of St. Mary Magdalene in Milk Street, a parish of the City of London. Need I know more? I think I know enough of this man to think of the City of London. Would be quite fitting. On the wreath of the colors, the dragon's sinister wing argent charged on the underside with a cross throughout jewels. Need I know more? Lord Directors. Which Lord? So, City of London seals. We don't need this. So, get back without Mr. Francis Fletcher now. Let's look it up if there is something interesting. I would have highlighted it. Drake captures a ship, Santa Maria, despite coastal shore fire from the Portuguese claimed island of Maio. So he captures a ship, Santa Maria, and you are really glad that it was not the ship of Christopher Columbus, because that would mean that America would have never been discovered. Just a lame joke, I'm sorry. Drake impresses Portuguese pilot Nuno da Silva, with whom also comes invaluable charts. Then Drake renames the ship Mary. Maybe that was because of Francis Fletcher, who was accompanying him as a chaplain. to rename his ship Mary. Isn't that also great? So, making progress here. On 30th of June, all crew members are summoned to the island and Drake addresses the tensions involving Doughty, so there's a guy, by empanaling a jury and convening a trial for capital crimes. Drake prosecutes and Doughty defends. The jury renders a guilty verdict and passes a sentence of death. On the 2nd of July, 2 days after the trial, Doughty faces the beheading block with dignity and courage. Just before the execution, Drake and Doughty even dine and take the communion sacrament together. Any comments, Brad?
Oh, gee.
Yeah. Oh, gee. They can take communion together and they don't know any of the 10 commandments, but then afterwards they kill people, huh?
Right.
My. 24th August, they came across the islands Isabel, Marta, and Magdalena. Here, Drake and several crew members go ashore, took possession of the land, and named the island Elizabeth Island. Today, it is identified as Isabel Island. 6th of September, Drake enters the Pacific, believing that Chile trends northwest instead of north as it actually does. Sailing 70 leagues west into the ocean, the fleet is hit by a storm, and after 10 days it worsened. Marigold, so that's the name of the ship, and her 29 crewmen were lost, or one of the ships, I'm sorry, once again. Marigold and her 29 crewmen were lost, and 11. And Captain Winter later stated that he had never lived through such a terrible tempest. It's very interesting, because if it happens in the Pacific, that is very interesting, because Pacific means peace. Pacific Ocean actually means the ocean of peace. So this is then they sail here. Drake explores the island on foot and takes measurements on the southernmost part of the island, 2 miles from his own ship Golden Hines anchorage. Drake names the island Elizabeth Island. He gives the name despite already using it for a different island within the Strait of Magellan. So Horn Island, no? It's another horn. Sure. So that speaks here about the aggressiveness of native people who had prior encounters with Spaniards. Suggests caution for the English. The first day's transactions get Drake's guard down. Then it gets worse. Drake takes an arrow into his face under his right eye. So they had trouble there, a bit of trouble there, I guess. Then there were attacks by the Spanish, and it's just not that interesting. I found quite interesting the death penalty and taking communion together. I found that typical of a certain church. Yeah, so he was being infamous for robbing, stealing, and pirating things. A pinnacle had set out from Arica to Chile, that's to Peru, cities, with the warning of Drake's intentions. The Spanish warning is successful, and the cargo is unloaded 2 hours before Drake arrives. The town people jeer his failure to take the treasure and shout, "Go, you thief!" Well, he was not. He was afterwards knighted, you see that, because of all this precious. Yeah. Drake learns a ship anchored at Callao belonging to Miguel Angel, so Michael Angel, which is taking a cargo of silver, argent or Argentina, means silver, to Panama. Drake is also informed that another ship, Nuestra Señora de la Concepción. Oh, Brad, do you know what it is this translated into English?
Nope.
Our Lady of Conception.
Oh, gee. Of course.
Yes. Drake has a rope placed around Jacob's neck to compel information. Yeah, you see that he's a... what else? What is he? He's just robbing Spanish treasure transferred to his own ship. Yeah. Yeah, then they had an earthquake.
Let me guess. He was flying the flag with the skull and bones on it, right?
I think that he was under the Union Jack, but what is Union Jack any better? Yeah, you see,
It's just another form of Jesuit, maybe.
Yeah. This is just the sign of Anu. Then you see that.
Yeah.
He could also shout, "Here I am Cain, and who is there to be slain?" Yeah, so that is, would be the same thing then. Huh?
How fitting,
so,
yes.
No wonder, huh? And of course, he'd been knighted then afterwards.
Oh, gee.
Yeah. So 38 latitude, but we have made it almost.
Let me guess. He probably has a secreta monita in his back pocket.
I don't know, but I would not be surprised, because he's just carrying this strange chaplain from Church of Saint Mary in the city of London area. I don't think that he's just be there only to write. I think that he is there to just oversee all the actions. Huh?
I see.
Yeah. In his deposition to the Inquisition, John Drake stated that Maria and the 3 black men, so they had captured these, were left on the island to found a settlement, leaving them rice, seeds, and means of making fire. Another period source states that the woman was simply abandoned upon the island. Yeah, whom to believe. Before pumping water from the hole, Drake first calls the men to kneel and pray. Yeah. So before he then returns in England, he hails the fisherman and asks, "Is the queen alive and well?" because he did not know about the political situation upon his return. Yeah, so Elizabeth then, Queen Elizabeth, assured that Drake has nothing to fear. It was summarized that the voyage has been seeing the wonders of the Lord in the deep, and discovering so many admirable things, is going through with so many strange adventures, in escaping out of so many dangers and overcoming so many difficulties in our encompassing of the nether globe, interesting, huh? And passing round about the world which we have related. Interesting. So that was the small excerpt here. Right, we had made 80 pages so far, so it's not that worse. So let's get back to the script. Now you know who Mr. Sir Francis Drake actually is.
Thank you, yes.
Overseen by a chaplain, most likely. In 1525, the Spanish navigator Francisco de Hocus discovered the Drake Passage. Oh, wait. What did I just read? In 1525, the Spanish navigator Francisco de Hocus discovered the Drake Passage. But he could not discover the Drake Passage. That is absolutely impossible. He could not discover the Drake Passage, and you can tell me why.
Oh, I can, Michael?
Sure, you can. When you know that Francis Drake encircled the world in 1577 somewhere, then the Spanish navigator could not discover the Drake Passage in 1525.
Yeah, right, because Drake hadn't been there yet, of course.
Yes.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Wikipedia, you see. If you combine all these articles, left, right, top, bottom, and all the stuff, and you see that nothing sums up.
That in 1525, navigator San Francisco de Hocus discovered the passage before Drake was named after it.
You have to do it all by foot. Yeah, Francis Drake has been born in 1540.
Yes.
So nobody could discover the passage 15 years before that guy had been born. So that means that this passage should have been named the Hocus or Francisco Passage. Because of this, the Drake Passage is referred to as the Mar de Hocus in Spanish maps and sources. So the source and the map that we all get from our Word Core curriculum is quite another thing. In the rest of the Spanish-speaking countries, it is mostly known as the Drake Passage or Passage de Drake. But that must be a coincidence, because the passage received its English name from Sir Francis Drake, of course, because it is an Englishman. So it is much more important to the English-speaking world than a Spanish guy. So what's the big point in it, Michael? You must be nuts to waste all that time on this silly stuff. After passing through the Strait of Magellan with Marigold, Elizabeth and his flagship Golden Hind, Drake entered the Pacific Ocean and was blown far south in a tempest, which is another contradiction because Pacific once again means peace. Marigold, so the ship was lost and Elizabeth abandoned the fleet. Only Drake's Golden Hind entered the passage. This incident demonstrated to the English that there was open water south of South America. And in the same instance, Wikipedia article, because Wikipedia is not the not-so-free encyclopedia, you can't write in that because there are many, many, many people who was just controlling it before. They tell you that in 1616 the Dutch navigator William Schouten became the first to sail around Cape Horn and through the Drake Passage. So, come on, what's the deal now? Is it Francis Drake, is it William Schouten, or is it now this Francisco de Hoces? So, if you compare Wikipedia, you find contrary information everywhere. But there must be a reason why they have chosen to name a certain spot, a certain river, a certain ocean, a certain country, whatsoever, not according to the discoverer. Because you see that when William Schouten became the first to sail around Cape Horn and through the Drake Passage, that means that Drake has never entered his own passage. Why did they name that passage after him? Because he was the first to discover. But no, that can't be, because the first who discovered that was Francisco de Hoces. So, Drake was neither the first one to discover it, nor the first one who passed through his own passage. And I can tell you, there is no Schouten passage. There is only a Drake passage. On December the 25th, that must be a big coincidence, 2019, a crew of 6 explorers successfully rowed across the passage, becoming the first in history to do so. This accomplishment became the subject of a 2020 documentary called The Impossible Row. So congratulations, guys. You did the impossible. But if you compare that to Wikipedia, they insist on that Sir Francis Drake was an English explorer and privateer. He was a privateer? I thought he collected all the stuff for the Queen Elizabeth for the Tower of London and then he was knighted before, so how could he be a privateer? Best known for his circumnavigation of the world, which just means to sail around in a circle. Between 5077 and 5080, that means that he could not... yeah, you know what I want to say. He was plundering coastal towns and ships for treasure and supplies as he went. And Elizabeth I awarded Drake a knighthood in 5081, which he received aboard his galleon on Golden Hind. Interesting, huh? My, that must be a very likable guy. Just a pirate, by coincidence. No, so some interesting passage facts. So, connecting Antarctica to the rest of the world, the Gargantian Passage has been traversed by many of the world's most famous explorers. But Drake never actually sailed these waters. But they name it after the guys they like. While the Drake Passage is the shortest route from Antarctica to the rest of the world, Sir Francis Drake actually opted for the less dangerous, albeit much longer Strait of Magellan. Nevertheless, this part of the ocean became named after the renowned circumnavigator when one of his ships drifted far south after passing through the Strait of Magellan in 5078. Having realized there might be a connection between the Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans, Drake and his crew inadvertently discovered what would become named Drake Passage. But the first person on record for sailing through the Drake Passage choppy waters was a Dutchman named Willem Schouten. That does not mean that Willem Schouten was the first one who discovered that. Schouten traversed the passage in 1616, almost 40 years after Drake's initial Antarctic exploration. No, it was not an Antarctic exploration, it was actually a circumnavigation. But what do I know? The passage is incredibly deep. The passage is incredibly deep. Sailing conditions make for a thrilling crossing. Crossing the Drake passage is a rite of passage. Water everywhere. It's paradise on ice. Maybe we should take a closer look or a second look at Sir Francis Drake to discover why that passage has gotten his name. Let's take a look at the Tavistock Institute in London, closely associated with the Jesuits, Fabian Society and the MI6 CIA. Why did I come up with Tavistock Institute? Oh, just look at this. The history of the Tavistock Institute in the United Kingdom. The Russell family became important in England after the rise of the Tudor dynasty dominated the opium and the slave trade with the Jesuits in China and India and conquered the Chinese. Bruce Lee, anybody? And the Indians by a reign of terror and opium addiction as a weapon to weaken them. They called themselves the Duke of Bedford and Marquess of Tavistock, West Devon Island, known for slave trader Francis Drake, the Order of the Golden Fleece emblem as coat of arms. The Order of the Golden Fleece was founded by Philip the Good. The Bible says nobody is good except God. The Golden Fleece refers to the Greek legend of the Argonauts who traveled north, the Orion Blood Lake. This is a statue of the Elizabethan explorer Sir Francis Drake on Plymouth Hoe, Devon in England, United Kingdom. What do we see here? Oh, he has his globe. Like Globus Cruciger, a little bit. No, he's got his globe because maybe they will depict him as being the circumnavigator on a globe, I think. That's what it is. And this is a quite interesting find. Furthermore, soon after, she granted him a coat of arms which showed a ship on a globe, guided by the divine hand of providence above an open visor, resting on a shield bearing the two pole stars divided by sea. Interesting. Over the motto, Auxilio Divino underneath Six Parvis Magna, great achievements from small beginnings. This was composed in praise of Francis Drake, and that's, of course, the divine hand of providence. On a globe, that must only be a coincidence. That must be something to do with the circumnavigation, I think. But what do I know? So, where is it? Remember, Sir Francis Drake. Drake means dragon, Draco. This is the emblem of the City of London Corporation, or the Knights Templars. On the left you see the emblem of the dragon protecting the treasure of the City of London Corporations, of course, the red dragon, because it's just Revelation 12, like the Virgin of Quito in Ecuador. And on the right side you see that motto of the sailor Sir Francis Drake, Sic Parvis Magna, and with a dragon on his ship, a red dragon on his ship. That's where color is really useful to see the small differences. There's just not only a star upon this the north here, and his ship is just sailing on the North Pole, although he was never sailing the North Pole. it's like the Drake passage then. You see, with divine help, Auxilio Divino, with divine help, he sailed around the so-called globe with a red dragon. Great! My. So my suggestion about this chaplain could be quite right. Yeah. Remember, Drake means Draco. Drake was a member of the Parliament. Drake's exploits made him a hero in the English, but his privateering led the Spanish to brand him a pirate, known to them as El Draque, the dragon in Old Spanish. And there's also an Order of the Dragon, where some other peoples like the Prince of Wallachia, Vlad II, the second Dracul, the father of Vlad the Impaler, took his name from the Order of the Dragon, and then you are at Dracula. There you go, Dracula the vampire. Actually, Dracul the Impaler, actually. So Drake was 22, I think, when he obtained the command of the Judith, There is some discussion about his age, because out of a sudden there is a strange miniature portrait appearing here, describing him at the age of 42, at his age 5081. It's very strange, because Drake was 22 when he obtained the command of this Judith, most likely a ship, 1566. That would date his birth to 1544. A date of circa 1540 is suggested from two portraits. 1540. 1540? Interesting year, huh?
Oh.
Interesting year. And then that name. And I said to myself, are they on a mission? Mission?
Yeah, in the truest sense, I think they are.
Yeah. So 1577, 1580, circumnavigation. Yeah, I skip it here a bit because it's just Wikipedia. Yeah, you see that Sir Francis Drake's new heraldic achievement with motto Sic Parvis Magna. Yeah, you see the red dragon here. After receiving his knighthood, Drake unilaterally adopted the coat of arms of the ancient Devon family of Drake of Ash, to whom he claimed a distant but unspecific kinship. The right to use the arms was disputed in court, so Queen Elizabeth awarded Drake his own coat of arms. So this is his own coat of arms with the red dragon. Before dying, Sir Francis Drake asked to be dressed in his full armor. So must be very proud of being a knight then, I guess. So, there must be a very important person, because in Tavistock Institute there's a bronze statue. Historical sources on Drake's early life are scarce and tend to be obscure. Drake left behind no words of his own, only his actions and their interpretation, which is open to deep speculation, or disagreement actually. Various mountains in British Columbia were named after Drake, or for Drake. In Valparaiso in Chile, folklore associates a cave known as Cueva del Pirata, literally the cave of the pirate, with Francis Drake. A legend says that when Drake ransacked the port, he was disappointed with the scant plunder and proceeded to enter the churches in fury to sack them and urinate on the chalices. Supposedly, he still found the plunder to be not worth enough to take on board his galleon and hid it in a cave. Yeah, so much so. The Drake Passage opened when Antarctica separated from South America due to plate tectonics. However, there is much debate about when this occurred with the continental drift, with estimates ranging from 49 to 70 million years ago. I have another estimation, but I don't have to say it loud, I think. So the old Drake Passage. This is Cape Horn. This is the Land of Fire. And the Drake Passage. And that's what it looks like. The Drake Passage. It's a little bit hostile, I guess. It's not Hawaii exactly. And it's much colder. Therefore, of course, the natives have to make fire, which you can see from the shipwreck. It's been said to be the biggest flow on Earth. Has been named against the English pirate Francis Drake. Despite the discovery of somebody else, the passage has been named after Drake, who never crossed the passage. But it has been named after Francis Drake. So, it's like Christopher Columbus once again. So, in the Drake Passage, cold and hot temperatures are meeting, and they create a phenomenon called the Drake Shake. That's from this documentary here. So that's why 10,000 people has lost their life in that part of the world. Endurance, yeah. With the pentagram then, yeah, great. So, according to that documentary, 800 ships are missing and 10,000 lives are lost. Yeah, quite cold there. Cape Horn. So, this is the not so dangerous Magellan route, getting from east to west, or getting from the Atlantic Ocean through parts of, I think, Argentina and Chile here, through the Pacific Ocean. And this here, around Cape Horn, yeah, this is then the Drake Passage. Coming to the Strait of Magellan. Francis Magellan was a Portuguese explorer, best known to have planned and led the 1519 Spanish expedition to the East Indies across the Pacific Ocean for a trade route. He was killed at the Battle of Mactan Islands, now province of what else? After Magellan's death, Juan Sebastian Elcano took the lead of the expedition and with his few other surviving members and one of the two remaining ships completed the first circumnavigation of Earth when they returned to Spain in 1522. Any remarks here?
Boy, 1522.
And the circumnavigation, in case of anybody has mixed up any numbers, of Francis Drake happened between 1577 and 1580. So 50 years before.
Right.
Yeah. So he was not the first one to discover this Drake Passage. He was not the first to sail the Drake Passage because he never sailed the Drake Passage, and he was not the first one who did a circumnavigation of the Earth. So how on earth did they name that passage after him? They tell you in the German Wikipedia that Ferdinand Magellan, this Portuguese explorer or discoverer here, that he has made the last practical proof that the Earth was a sphere because of his circumnavigation. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how? Yeah, the final practical proof of the already well-known spherical shape of the Earth. Can you imagine? What a total BS. This is not a proof. You can run around in a circle. But that's not my big point. They claim about the climate here that the Drake Passage influences the global surface temperature and Atlantic circulation. Yeah, if it is correct that if that area or that passage there has the biggest flow, then it might influence the global surface temperature. But you see, the global or not global or the entire surface temperature of the entire Earth, which is not a planet, can be influenced by so many factors, of course. You see, when it comes down to names, it is not necessarily been given to the one who has discovered it, but by the one who they just want to praise. For example, there is a low rock 10 miles southeast of Shack Rocks in South Georgia called the Black Rock, and Black Rock is of course a synonym for Satan or Saturn. So you only have to look upon all the stuff what it actually means. The Pacific Ocean means to make peace. Peaceful peacemaking. Interesting. When I think then of a small city called Ecuador, which is located here, and there's a Virgin of Quito, she is just about to bring peace, and then she's just close by the East Pacific, then it just sums a little bit up, but it gets worse. There's also an island in the South Atlantic Oceans, which is called South Georgia. This is about the Isle of George, about King George III. So usually you would name these islands in favor of the current king or queen or ruler or what else. Christopher Columbus could also have named America, or the land that he officially discovered, Isabel Island, according to the Queen Isabel, that he was been given these 3 precious ships. But okay, come on. Now sum it all up, I think. This is between South America and between the Antarctica. Drake, actually, from the etymology, of course, means the male of the duck. Huh? Really? I thought something else. But if they say so. But Drake can also mean dragon, from the 1200th century from English draca, dragon, sea monster or huge serpent. And then, of course, the coat of arms of Sir Francis Drake would be quite fitting then with the red dragon, I guess. But that would not explain why they have then favored Mr. Sir Francis Drake. Because Drake means dragon. And dragon comes from Greek drakon, means a serpent or a giant sea fish. Used in the Bible, generally for creatures of great size and fierceness. It translates in Hebrew tannin, a great sea monster. Also tan, a desert mammal now believed to be the jackal. And there's also a mandrake, an old word plant, associated with the element of dragoon and substituted native drake in its place. A plant which ruin a semi-human form and has been regarded as a aphrodisiac. But if I look to South America, I see a woman crowned with the 12 stars, with a sun, clothed with the sun, and has a serpent with horns under her feet. And if I look then to South America and the Antarctica, that would quite fit. Because then you have your land of fire, where the dragon rules. Then you have Cape Horn, because he's got a horn, and you got a Drake passage. But that must be only a coincidence then. Because everybody who's just looking to the Virgin of Quito is just having in for a good time. Don't bother them with anything. You see that everything is a coincidence. And she's just a fan of Winston Churchill here, raising her left arm. You think that I am nuts. You really think that I am nuts. If you think that I am nuts, then look what else is there. There is a deception island. I'm not kidding. Deception means the art of misleading, a lie, a falsehood. And you see, that would be Genesis 3:13 all over again. A deception.
Ah, yes. Okay. And the Lord God said unto the woman, What is this thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat.
And that means to delude or to deceive. Hebrews 5:3-7-7. Nasha, to deceive, to beguile. And there's a deception island at Antarctica. And the etymology of Jesuit explains Jesuitical as being deceitful, designing and insinuating. So they are masters of deception, right?
Yeah.
This is Deception Island in Antarctica. You don't have to believe me, you can look it up. You can look it up.
Looks pretty dark there.
Yeah. Deception Island. A volcanic island. You can have the English explanation, of course. This is Deception Island, located in the South Shetland Island. Location Antarctica. A Deception Island. Who comes up with that name? This is in the Drake Strait. Yeah, there's your Deception Island. But that must be a coincidence, of course. As everything else is just a coincidence here. This is the Drake Strait. Need I say more? And there is your dragon.
Revelation 12:9, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
If you use Google Earth at a certain height, you can come up with this image. I can't tell you if they have created that image on purpose, or if God has created these topography, these heights, these oceans in that shape. And it is not necessarily one or the other. It's not important. Important is that they name all the important points across that kind of a geographic figure. According to Cape Horn, this is here, Fireland, Tierra del Fuego, and Drake Street with a Deception Island. Yeah, and these are, in my humble opinion, no coincidences. There are no such coincidences. When you know that Cape Horn, you see the birth town and blah, 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 and you see it as not named for the original discoverer, but they choose, or actually, let's put it this way, they sent Mr. Francis Drake there, and then I could say, yeah, that was Francis Drake, and therefore we name it the Drake Strait, or the Drake Passage. Don't worry about that Spanish guy and all this Portuguese and Dutch. Whoa, we don't care. And you know who's in the end the one who decides the politics and all the like. These are not the native people, and these are not the native tribes or any small discoverer. These are the emperors and queens and kings, and they are subjugate to the Pope, papacy. And if you don't believe me, you don't have to believe me. You can look it up on Google Earth. I have prepared a small video of close to 1 minute so that you really can see that I'm not making this up. And this was also the content of a former Science is the New Religion session, I know. But I think that repetition is quite necessary in these times, when you can't imagine what now comes into fruition. And you see that they always will play it incorrectly and interpret the Bible their way. You don't have to believe me. You first have only to watch, maybe if you would like to show this small insert here. Zoom to South America. This is South America. Yes. Now we have to put it in the center there with all the clouds.
Okay. All right, Michael.
So that was the insert, and Brett just read the verse Revelation 12:9, and this is Revelation 12. This is the same chapter that refers to the Virgin Mary statue in Quito in Ecuador. Ecuador is not on this map here, but would be somewhere here, quite nearby the Pacific Ocean. That's quite interesting when you see that dragon-like figure here with the Cape Horn, so where the horns are, this is Cape Horn, and you see these two small white things here which could resemble the eyes of the dragon. And it's very interesting that this ocean has been named the Pacific Ocean, so the ocean of peace. It's quite interesting. If you're not convinced, then I'm not responsible for anything. I just lay out my research on that field. And there's much more to it, which we will develop in further studies and further sessions here. There is, however, when this is the Drake Passage, and this would be the mouth of the dragon here, or the sea serpent, let's put it this way. You see that in Greek it would be the sea serpent. Yeah, you see this would be here. Yeah, you see, if you would think of this, the left eye and the right eye, this is the left eye and the right eye here. Here is a Villa Las Estrellas. You know what this is. Villa Las Estrellas means Spanish for the Stars Village or the Hamlet of the Stars, a permanent inhabited outpost on King George Island with the Chilean Antarctic claim, also within the Argentine and British Antarctic claims. So that is the Village of the Stars, and there you got another hint to Revelation 12. and his angels were cast out with him. Here you got the Villa Las Estrellas, the Stars Village. And I'm out of any coincidences here. So all the Antarctica about UFOs and all about the Nazi Third Reich and all the stuff, this is all deception in my humble opinion, because it is Conception Island there. It is deception. It is all deception, I think, because there is Deception Island there. This is just a deception. We have to slowly find out what could be the truth and what not. And once again, I'm not a prophet. I'm just researching this stuff, which I find quite to be interesting, especially in the last days. So they had all the time on their hands, all their money, their power and their men and their ships and all the stuff to come up with all the names of Cape Horn and the Land of Fire, the Drake Strait or the Drake Passage and the City of the Stars. I don't think that these summations are any kind of coincidences. I think they are deliberately for a certain purpose. And we will look to this in the further episode. You might be wondering about it, that might sound totally outlandish, but you see that in Revelation 12, in verse 4 even, there has been mentioned, Brett, could you read it?
Yes, absolutely. Revelation 12, verse 4, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven. It did cast them to the earth, and the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered to devour her child as soon as it was born.
Yeah, so it is an absolutely reference to the same verse that the Virgin in Quito is a reference to, with the red dragon and the woman to be delivered and all the stuff. Yeah, so the third part of the stars of heaven did cast him to the earth, and there you got your Villa Las Estrellas, the Stars Village, the Hamlet of the Stars, Spanish. Quite nearby the dragon, or the Drake Passage. Come on, can't be that hard, huh? Although in some biblical apocryphal books, in the book of Enoch, it's been said that it's the Mount Hermon is the place where the Watcher class of fallen angels descended to earth. Naturally, I would not go into Apocryphica and not in the book of Enoch. What is interesting is in this Mount Hermon, there is actually a quite interesting find, because there is not only a sanctuary where they are worshipping. You have to ask which god. They are worshipping Pan, the god of natural resources, because it is just like an oasis there on this Mount Hermon. It's very interesting when you look upon all the stuff, because in Israel they are really, really clever, because in Israel, now the country Israel, not the biblical Israel by any means, they have resources and methods and means to use usual ocean salt water into water for just for plants and just for drinking. Yeah, so in case of any starvation, Israel would not have that much of a problem than Arabian countries. So there is much more to come in the future. The Temple al Caesarea Philippi, the home of Pan. Yeah, like Aleister Crowley, the hymn of Pan. If you think that I am far off, then look at all the symbolism in the entire world about dragons. This is the Dragon Bridge in Da Nang in Vietnam.
Wow.
This is the Dragon Bridge a little bit closer. And here in the mouth, they have even a cannon which is spitting fire. And this is in Vietnam. This is not in South America. So they are worshipping the dragon. This is an excerpt from that video here. They are worshipping the dragon, and they are just making so much fun. The dragon has been worshipped all around the world, even in child television like My Little Pony. There's a little dragon everywhere. And that was also one of the initial sparks which drew me to Antarctica and South America and the Drake Passage. Because we have talked about a dragon lately, haven't we? This is Bruce Lee in a famous pose, spreading his lats. You see, lats, latitude, width. And I think that's on purpose because his nickname is Little Dragon. And on top of him, you see his spiritual master. That's the great red dragon. And that's, I think, one of the purposes why Bruce Lee built his physique like this, to be a physical resemblance of a dragon. And when you know that in China they worship the dragon quite extensively as being the smartest animal and with a pearl in his mouth as being the creator of the universe and what else, then I think that the physique of Mr. Bruce Lee serves just this purpose. And this movie here, which plays officially in Rome, has been called The Way of the Dragon. But maybe we have found the way of the dragon already, but it is not in Rome. It is in Rome spiritually, but there is something else happening quite nearby Antarctica. Because Little Dragon, he has wings too. I have compared the physique of Mr. Bruce Lee lately to physiques of other people. And it seems that big, massive wings on his body, literally, are not necessary for punching. So all what he does is having big lats, like wings, and he's just having flying kicks, like a dragon. This is a very subtle thing going on there in every society. And if you compare then that China, according to other people who I don't judge by any cover, are most likely one of the biggest persecutors of any true Christians. They worship the dragon, of course. But it is once again Michael the Prince who is just defeating spiritual things in the Bible, and not Mary, and not the woman or the virgin or whatever title, or Eve or whatever title you would like to come up with. It is so ironic that in the Pacific Ocean, where that figure of a dragon is actually lying, it's been seen as being peaceful. When we have known that the ships of Francis Drake, during his global circumnavigation, has gotten into a severe and heavy tempest there. Interesting. Why do they call this ocean Pacific Ocean, tending to make peace? So could it be that people who are just in power, they think that Mary and the dragon are bringing the peace, and not anywhere or anybody else? It's very interesting. I was reminded of a music song of Village People, Go West, which has been adopted by the Pet Shop Boys. The line is "Go west, life is peaceful there." And this means the Pacific. Or could mean the Pacific. Is peaceful there. Go west in the open air, go west, baby, you and me, which of course could be the abbreviation of Babylon. Go west, this is our destiny. And then when you look a little bit further, what is actual news here? Then, last week, I have discovered a so-called newsflash that discoverers, they were just discovering, or scientists were discovering, a 240 million years old remains of a dragon. This is a mixture between a snake and a dragon. Oh, that would be Draco, a sea serpent or a snake. And this is also where the session ends, or my contribution ends, and where the contribution of my beloved brother in Christ, Brett, begins. Maranatha.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, it's quite a deep study there into all of this history, and Very interesting to see the connections of 1540 there with Sir Francis Drake as well. Yeah, incredible, actually. Yeah, the missions, eh? So yeah, maybe we delve back into more of this next time. Hope you join us then, and bye-bye.